note taker issue. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump in. Today, we're going to talk through how to go between appointments set and held and keep that show rate high. So last time we talked all about the verbiage of how to set an appointment so it actually shows up. I'm curious, we have a little bit of a smaller group here, but who has seen better success with setting appointments since you've used last week's verbiage? Anyone?
I set 4 buyer consults last week, and I signed 3 of them, waiting on one more buyer doc.
Woo, that's amazing. So you set 4, signed 3, and you're waiting for the 4th. That's
Yes,
incredible.
ma'am.
That's amazing. Well done. I'm curious, how does that compare to what you did before? Before that?
I was doing about 2, and I was lucky to attend 2. I think it was partially the verbiage.
Yeah.
Reminder, I am somewhat new, so I was there were some times where I was rushing to an appointment, whereas last week I really tried to focus on the fundamentals of what we're doing and why the appointment's important.
That's
Um,
amazing.
and it really worked. My show ratio was like, I think I calculated it out. Before it was about 95%. There was a couple that, had to reschedule or just really couldn't make it. But now it's a lot better.
Good. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. Congratulations. Rhonda, did you have a win to share regarding appointment setting?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say I had one set and it was for yesterday, and I actually got the listing.
Yay! That's awesome.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what we learned last week, if you missed it, it's verbiage around how to set appointments that actually show up, and it tees them up to sign for you. So that's amazing. That's wonderful. Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. Anybody else have a win to share regarding appointment setting before we jump in? Okay, well, let's go ahead and jump into today. So today we're going to talk through all the behind the scenes stuff. So what happens between appointment set and appointment held to keep the client engaged? Or what if you set it and for whatever reason, it was very legit, but you really just couldn't get them in within 48 hours? What do we do in those situations to keep them engaged? So we'll talk through that today. Quick reminder, as always, this is also in your notes for the class, TCPA reminders, do not call reminders. Just make sure you're doing things legally correct. Okay. And I'll remind you of that constantly. Okay. So today we're going to talk about, other than verbiage, how do you achieve a high show ratio? We're also going to talk through how to track your appointments, whether you're on a team or you're a single agent. It's very important. And then we'll actually take a look at that tracker. And if you would do me a favor, some of you got into the tracker before class, which is totally fine. If you could hold off and just stay with me on the slides right now, and then we'll get into the tracker in a moment. So just kind of hang here with me and we'll get into the tracker in just a little bit. So I'd love to talk with you about what helps the show ratio that's not just verbiage. So I think, who was that? Gabe? I think Gabe is the one who just shared. There's a lot of factors that go into having an appointment show up and actually set with you. So yes, the verbiage around picking a time, the verbiage around when we meet, we're going to sign paperwork. All of that absolutely matters, but there's a lot of other factors as well. So what I want to do is go through, for me, what was the checklist of why am I either not getting enough appointments or not having enough appointments show? And I created a little checklist for myself of things to inspect. So if I'm setting them and they're not showing up, what are all the things I need to look at? My dad is a pilot for fun, which I think this is weird. I have 4 pilots in my family and none of them, it's their profession. They just like to fly planes. Isn't that weird? I think that's odd. I think it's wonderful. I just don't know. I think I grew up thinking everybody knew somebody that flew a plane. But my dad and my grandpa and my uncle, they all have a pre-flight checklist. And it's the thing that they check off, and they literally go through it every time before they take off to make sure that everything is safe and they've done all of their due diligence to make sure things are going to work properly. So I want you to think of what we're learning today kind of like your list of pre-appointment checklist, okay? So the first thing we're going to look at is, did you do a quality pre-screening? So in a previous class, I gave you a buyer sheet and a seller sheet. And if you were on the extra help call yesterday, which had tons of value, you guys asked great questions yesterday. If you're not on there, you're missing out. Make sure you join us. But one of the questions was around setting appointments and actually getting them to show up. And we talked about one key factor is going through literally every question on the buyer sheet and the seller sheet to make sure that you are prepared for that appointment. I have some thoughts on this, but I want you to mastermind it for a second. Why does asking quality questions before setting the appointment, why does that matter?
It saves you time in the long run. You get to have more rapport and know their motivation before you go into the appointment.
Yeah, definitely. That's a big factor. Nisi, what about you?
I would say you're beginning with the end in mind, right? So if it's a quality appointment, you ask those questions. Once you get to the appointment, they're more likely to sign with you.
Yes. Yeah, they're more likely. Yeah, and it's almost, it reminds me of my dad, who's a police officer, and the dispatcher is providing info as he drives to different situations so that when he gets there, he knows what he's walking into. It's the same idea. We know what we're walking into when we've asked a lot of questions. Why else does it matter? Think about client perception. Why does it matter to ask a lot of questions before we set the appointment?
If you don't ask questions, then they don't think you're interested in them or what they want, that you're just there to make money. And to be honest, that commission breath can show through. So if you're not asking questions and showing interest, everyone wants to think you're interested in them. So, I mean, that's how you can gain someone's trust.
Yes. Yes. You just said that very, very well. Yes. Rhonda, what about you?
I think it just shows professionalism. I think that's what they'll feel, is that they're receiving professional help.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I'd like to point out one thing that nobody has said yet. I view it as my way to test how serious they are. So how long does it take to ask those buyer seller questions? Now, we all might be chattier than other people, who knows? But on average, it takes about 7 to 12 minutes, depending on if they're buyer only or buyer seller or seller only. But in my experience, even if they're buying a house and selling a house, getting motivation, getting everything in one phone call, on average, it's 12 minutes. Well, I kind of look at it like, say I call Elise. If Elise is not willing to be on the phone with me for 12 minutes, that is a sign to me that she may also not be a willing buyer or seller client, right? Like if she's serious about this, she's going to spend time. Right before I left for family reunion last week, I found a hole in my roof. It was amazing. Apparently during Hurricane Helene, I live in that area. Some branches were broken loose, but they didn't fall, and they fell recently in a windstorm, and they put holes in my roof. So delayed Hurricane Helene damage. And I found water coming through my ceiling right before I left for family reunion. Well, guys, I didn't have time. I had no time for this. And you know what I did? I made time. I made time to talk to the insurance. Why? Because it's important to me, right? Wouldn't you have done that as well? So when it's important to you, you find time to make it work. And by the way, it's all working out great and everything. I mean, it's not fixed yet, but it's going to be fine. But the point is, I truly didn't have time. If you've ever been to a conference, you know the day or two before you leave, you really just don't have time. But when it's important to you, you make the time. And so that's why I believe quality pre-screening and actually going through every single question on the buyer seller sheet matters, because it does tell me how serious is this person. Now, if I'm talking to Deb and I have good rapport with Deb, I can tell she's engaged. And then I hear a thud in the background and a child start crying. And she's like, my son just fell off his chair. I got to go. That doesn't mean Deb's not interested just because we didn't finish the buyer seller pre-screening sheet, right? She had something pop up. But what I will do is call her back before the appointment to finish. So if you have someone and they have to go, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not interested, but I would check and see, are they willing to get back on the phone with me before we meet to finish the process? Does that make sense to everyone? Good. When I first started, Haro was my team leader, and he refused to go in on an appointment if I missed one question on the buyer seller sheet. And it used to irritate me because it's like, you have all the other questions, you're missing one little question. But he had wisdom in that because he would say, well, why were you missing this question? And sometimes my answer would be they weren't willing to answer it. Sometimes my answer would be, well, they were rushing me off the phone. But can you see how either of those is actually a bit of a concern to whether or not this person would show up, right? So I'm a big believer in doing the full buyer pre-screening, full seller pre-screening before setting that appointment. The next thing is making sure you get them within 48 hours. Who remembers the percentage drop if it's outside of 48 hours? I'm testing your knowledge. Anybody? So normal show rate is 70 to 80%. Louise, it drops more than that. Elise, what do you think?
I think it drops to 30%.
It drops to less than that. Close. Close though. You're so close. It drops to 20%. It drops to 20%. So it's wild. You could do things exactly the same, copy paste. And if one client is within 48 hours, they will show up 70 to 80% of the time if you're following all the processes. If you're doing all the same things, but now they're more than 48 hours out, it drops to 20. So for some of you, that might be your biggest takeaway today, is making sure you get them within 48 hours. The next thing is communication between appointment set to scene. And I'm going to lean on some of you in this class because you might have great systems for this, and I'd love for you to share in just a moment. But once we set an appointment, we want to make sure we have good communication between set to held or seen. Same thing. Now I'm on a team, so let me share team perspective, and then I'll share single agent perspective because there's a couple different processes here. On a team, I was the inside sales agent, and that meant I was setting appointments for other people to go on. Now, ideally, the agent would call the client before the meeting and just say, hey, I can't wait to meet you. But I can't guarantee that that's definitely going to happen. I can't guarantee that that's going to happen. I'm going to totally interrupt us. And can I have a coaching moment? Okay. Y'all know I care about you at this point, right? So during today's call, I have stopped video for multiple participants. And would you like to know why? Wildly distracting. It's very obvious you're doing other things and talking to other people and on the phone. And I just want to encourage you, this is an hour. That doesn't make you a bad person, by the way. I've done that on webinars. And you know what happens when I do that on webinars? I totally miss the value of the webinar. Okay. So I get it. I've done it myself. And I've learned when I'm really distracted, I miss the value. And my goal, and you can hold me accountable to this because I actually need to know, is this happening? But my goal is that these webinars are so incredibly valuable that even if you missed 5 sales calls during the webinar, it was worth it to miss them because you're that much better from being on the call, right? I hope that makes sense. And so you're not a bad person if you're distracted during a webinar, but here's the thing, is it distracts other people and it distracts me if your camera's on and you're robbing yourself of value. Now, if you feel that you're not getting value, send me a message and tell me because that's good feedback for me to change something. But I just had to put on my coach hat for a minute because it's a large amount of people today are very clearly not engaged and I don't want you to miss out. Got it? I hope you take that in the coach heart. I'm giving it to you. Not in judgment, in care. I want you to succeed. So I hope that you're getting enough that if you miss calls, it's okay because you'll get more than you missed because of the value and you'll convert more. Okay, awesome. So let's jump back in. Where was I? So communication between appointments set to scene. So a couple things with that is we want to make sure we stay engaged. So if I'm on a team, and let's say I'm on a team and I'm setting an appointment for Stephanie. Stephanie's the agent. I'm the inside sales agent. Ideally, Stephanie would call before the appointment and introduce herself and be all excited and, hey, I can't wait to meet you. But you know what? I can't control what Stephanie does. And Stephanie is a very busy agent. So what I'm going to do for communication from set to scene, is say I'm talking to Louise. I might tell Louise, the client, hey, you probably won't hear from Stephanie until you meet her in person, but I'm going to give you her number if you see this number pop up on your phone, it's Stephanie, your agent. You're going to love her. So save her number. And if you see it calling you, go ahead and pick up. And then I will call you tomorrow to see if you have any questions before you meet with Stephanie. Do you need anything else? Okay, great. So what I'm doing is I'm setting the expectation that she will not hear from the agent before the meeting. Now, a few things. Ideally, Stephanie will call. And now if Stephanie calls, what is the perception of that for the client? Amazing.
Stephanie's awesome.
Yeah, Stephanie's awesome.
Expectations.
Yes. Now Stephanie's just doing her job. But the perception is, wow, I wasn't expecting to hear from Stephanie till I met her. This is awesome, right? And then if Stephanie doesn't call for any reason, that's the expectation that was set. So it's fine. It's totally fine. Also notice that I said I will call to ask you if you have any questions that popped up, not I will call you to confirm. What's the challenge with calling to confirm? It's the word confirm that we want to get away from.
They may cancel.
They may cancel. Yeah. I just ordered something on Amazon, which is way too easy to do, by the way. And you know what I wait to see if I got confirmation. And if I didn't get confirmation, it's that idea of it could still be canceled. Now, question, when you pick a time and put it in the calendar, at that point, is it not confirmed? Right? It's confirmed. So if Kelly and I talk and we decide that we're going to meet at 4 o'clock tomorrow, when we say 4 o'clock tomorrow, yes, okay, great, I'm putting you in the calendar. At that point, it is confirmed, right? So what I'm going to do instead is I will call and remind her of the appointment, but I'm not going to call and confirm the appointment. So what I like to do is say, hey, Kelly, I'll give you a call tomorrow just to give you a quick reminder. And it's very normal that when we hang up, you're going to have questions pop up. Write them down. And when I call you tomorrow, you can tell me what they are, so I'm ready. And that's how you can do that communication. Okay. Let me give you a couple other thoughts here, and then I want to hear from you guys of what you have to say. So another idea too is it does depend on lead source in my experience. So I used to set, back when I was very active in this, 20 FSBO or expired appointments a month, just 20 from those, and then about 20 from other sources. What I found is the 20 of other sources, they usually were web leads or sign calls or Sphere or referrals. I didn't have to do quite as much follow-up in the 48 hours to make sure they showed up. But the expireds and the FSBOs, I had to do a lot more. So that's what I learned. My expired and FSBO show ratio was hanging out around 50%, and my target was 70%. Everybody else was at 70% or higher. So that just showed me, and it kind of makes sense. These are people that they don't have rapport with me. I called them out of the blue. If you do that, make sure you do it in a TCPA compliant way. But I called them out of the blue. They don't know me. And I set an appointment with them. So they're not going to be quite as strong as a sign call or a web lead or somebody who saw our marketing, right? So what we found really helpful was if they were close to the office, we would drop off a packet. And we would say, hey, we're going to have someone drop by and drop off a packet of information about our team. Don't be alarmed when you see them. Will you be home? Okay, great. And if they were further out, we would email them something, just a little video about the team. And we just found we had to just add a few extra pieces of communication. And once we did that, they also showed closer to 70%. So what I'm getting at is know your lead source and track your numbers. And you may find there are certain lead sources you work that you just have to do a little extra from set to held to make sure they actually do show up. Now, I always learn a lot from the class in this session. So I want to hear from you, and raise your hand or use the chat box. Don't just unmute so we can not talk over each other. But what do you like to do from appointment set to appointment held? That's something different than what we've already talked about. Or what do you include in your packet or your email? Does anybody do this? Stephanie, yeah, Stephanie says, I send a text saying, see you tomorrow at 9. So again, a reminder, not a confirmation. That's good. I see a lot of you nodding your head, so I think a lot of you must do that. Does anybody have anything or did we cover it? Okay. Then it sounds like we're good. And again, if you're seeing them within 48 hours, you don't really need to do a whole lot. That's only 2 days max. So there's only so much you can do in 2 days. Yeah, Rhonda, I like that too. I always send a reminder text and ask if they have any questions I could be prepared for. So again, yeah, a reminder. Stephanie does a calendar invite. Not Stephanie, Louise. I read the name above you, Louise. Yep, that's good. I know who you guys are. Calendar invite. Let's see, we create a group text as well with the agent and the lead to let them know they can reply and the agent will respond. Good. I like that. Yeah, so you guys have some good systems. Louise, your reminder reminded me about the calendar invite. I think we talked about this last week, so if I did, just remind me. But I do believe if someone feels, you know how you get that sixth sense where you're like, I just don't know, this person is saying yes and they're saying all the right things, and I'm just a little wondering if they're actually going to show up. There's something in me that's picking up something, and I'm just wondering if they're actually serious. For those people, I would send a calendar invite. And the way I worded that was, Kelly, I'm going to send you a calendar invite. Accepting that, you're right. Accepting that is what will put you into my calendar. So until you hit yes, I accept, you are not actually in my calendar for this appointment. So how soon could you do that? And what I found is the people who were serious, they hit yes and they did it. The people who never accepted it, they were the no-shows anyway. In my experience, overall, yeah. Yeah, you're right. We wreck family reunion. Deb says, want to clarify that you are setting the appointment within 48 hours, not going on it. No, I mean, we're actually going on it. So from setting it to having it, it's within 2 days. So today's Wednesday at 3:55. I would want my appointment to happen by Friday at 3:55. Would I repeat the verbiage? Yes. Now it's not like a set script, so I'll give you the gist. But hey, Gabe, what I'm going to do is send you a calendar invite, and accepting that invite is what will lock you into my calendar. So until you hit yes, you are not actually in my calendar. How fast can you accept this calendar invite? And that does create urgency. Yeah, good. Any other questions or thoughts on what you do between set to held? Good stuff. Okay. Stephanie, are you raising your hand? No? Okay.
Yes, sorry, I couldn't find the reaction button, but so how often does that happen that they don't accept it right away? And then do you just pull it back if you set another appointment for that time? Like, how
Yeah.
often did you double book? Like, that scares me a little.
I totally get it. So the truth is, Stephanie, it didn't happen often. Because
Okay.
I'm not going to be offering someone an appointment unless I have a sense that they're serious. Remember, I'm not even offering an appointment if you haven't answered the whole buyer sheet, the whole seller sheet. I've gotten your motivation. We're not even getting to this point in the conversation. So it's very rare that happens. And so what I personally did, Stephanie, is I would still go ahead and block it, but like gray it out. And usually I had enough other spots that if someone else wanted an appointment, I could just stick them somewhere else. But if I was really busy, and this would happen on the team sometimes, we had 7 agents and sometimes they were massively booked. And I would just tell them, if you do not accept this and someone else calls me, then they will have that appointment spot. So how quickly can you do it? And sometimes they'd be like, oh, I don't know, I can do it tonight when I get home. I already know you're probably going to be a no-show if you're that lackadaisical about it. Lackadaisical, that is a word. Isn't it funny how your brain thinks of a word that you haven't used in months? I don't know the last time I said that word. But Stephanie, it doesn't happen often, and I would still try not to double book. Does that answer it for you? Okay. Sasha, go ahead.
So say they don't confirm it for the calendar, so you already know that they're not going to show up. when would you suggest would be the good time to, I guess, would do a follow-up call or to see, be like, hey, what's up? Like, what happened? Everything was
Yeah.
perfect. Did life get in the way?
Yeah. So let me give you the 3-step call out. Okay. There's a 3-step kind call out. It's not in your notes. Just write it down. Step number 1 is remind them of their motivation. And by the way, I would do this within that 24-hour window. Like if I'm seeing that they haven't accepted it, I'm calling pretty quick. So number 1 is remind them of their motivation. So, hey, Sasha, I know you said you really wanted to travel the country in an RV, and to do that, you need to sell the house. So that's reminding them of motivation. Step number 2 is describe observed behavior. Observed, not what you think happened. So what I would not do is say you chose not to accept the invite. I don't know that. That's an assumption. Observed behavior would simply be, I noticed the invite has not been accepted. Is that observed? Yes. And I'm not making any assumptions about their intent or feelings or motive. So, hey, Sasha, I know you want to sell the house so you can travel, downsize, be in an RV, travel the world. And I'm noticing we have not yet accepted the calendar invite. And then step number 3, smile when you say this, even though they can't see you. Make sure you smile. They'll hear it in your voice. Talk to me about what's going on there. And that just opens the door for them to communicate. So number 1, remind them of their motivation. Number 2, describe observed behavior. And number 3, talk to me about what's going on there with a smile. And that usually does it, Sasha. And remember, I'm saying, how soon can you accept the calendar invite? So if they say by 5 o'clock tonight, if it's 6 o'clock and I don't see it, I'll call them. But here's what I'll say. I don't think this will be a very super regular common occurrence. Because remember, if you're using the system that we teach in this program, you're not offering an appointment until the very end of about a 12-minute conversation. They will have answered every question on the buyer sheet or the seller sheet or both, if they're both. And now at the very end, I'm offering them an appointment. So if they're really truly just disengaged and not that serious, you probably would not have gotten this far in the conversation for the most part. So here's what I will say is if you find it to be a regular occurrence, this might be hard to hear, but it's a good thing to hear. If you find it to be a regular occurrence that people are not showing up or they're not accepting the invite, it would be good to do some self-reflection on, are you following the process? Because it shouldn't be a regular thing. Good. We'll come back. If you have more questions on that, just write it down so you don't forget. We'll do more questions at the end. I want to keep going just to make sure we have enough time. But great discussion. Great discussion there. Okay, let's keep going. So communication between set to scene. Next, and this is a big one. Put a heart beside this one or a star, whatever you want. I like heart because this to me is the heart of why I'm a real estate agent, is I truly love to help people hit their goals. That's how I feel about all of you in this class. I want to help you hit your goals. I want to help buyers and sellers hit their goals. So remind them before you meet, remember, we are meeting to help you get, and then restate the motivation to them. Just restate that motivation to them. Okay. So maybe right before I hang up from setting the appointment, we've set our time. We've done everything. I've sent the calendar invite. We've done everything all together. And I might say, hey, Alex, just a reminder. Yes, we're going to talk marketing strategy and we're going to answer all the questions you asked me. I'll make sure you know how to contact our stager, all that good stuff. But the real reason we're meeting is you said that you want to live closer to your parents so you can avoid them going into a home and you want to take care of them as they're aging. That's really why we're getting together. Can't wait to help you. So remind them of that right before you hang up. I mean, I won't go on and on because I think I do that enough in this class about motivation, but y'all get it, right? It's always about motivation. It's always about motivation. Yeah, and Sasha had a good comment in the chat box. People don't say no to their own goals. That's true. So make sure you remind them of their own goals. I love real estate agents, and I am a real estate agent. And so take this with all the love, but they don't really care a whole lot about all your team stats and your marketing plan and all that. We need to share that stuff so they know our process. But if we make it, I can't wait to meet you to talk about our marketing plan, that's not going to be super energizing to them, right? But if it's, I can't wait to meet you so we can get you closer to your parents so you can help them as they're aging, that's very exciting, right? So make sure you keep that in front of them. And by all means, share your amazing marketing plan and all that stuff. They need to know, but just don't make that the point of the meeting. It's all about them and what their goals are. Okay, and then lastly, remember the nurse, doctor, or waiter, chef analogies. I have referenced this before, but it's the idea of when I'm setting the appointment, I'm the nurse, which means I'm the question asker, I'm gathering your data. When we meet in person, I'm the doctor. So that's where I'm going to figure out how to solve, how to get you where you want to go. And it can just build up excitement towards meeting you, because when they meet with you, that's the solution time. And so keeping that separate. One of the hardest things I found as an agent, the more and more I learned about the market and the industry and all that stuff, is I had to hold myself back on the phone. I have a teacher heart. I just want to tell you everything. And so sometimes I would want to do that on the phone. And then why would they meet with me? I already answered all of their questions, right? So just keep in mind, there are some things that are meant for the phone, and that's mostly question asking and gathering their info. And then the appointment is to share the solutions. So that's the nurse doctor analogy. Some people like the waiter chef analogy as well. I'm the waiter right now, gathering your info. The chef is the one who will take care of you. I don't love that one as much, but some people do. So use it. If you like it, go ahead. Could you refer to yourself as a coordinator? I guess it depends on your role. But I haven't really heard that before. If you want to tell me what your role is, Sasha, in the chat box, I might be able to add more to that. But I haven't heard that one before. ISA. Yeah, I would just say, think of me like the nurse, and I'll set you up with the doctor. That just works well. It works really well. Good. Okay. One other thing I want to touch on and is make sure that you keep in mind, what is the difference? And this is not in your notes, just side note that I just thought of. Make sure you have in your mind, what do customers get and what do clients get? And remember, not everybody should get the same things from you. You know, if they are not yet a signed client, there are some things that legally we need to provide to everyone. You learned about that in your real estate licensing class. But there are also services that we provide that are exclusive to signed clients. So make sure that you're clear on that, and don't be afraid to communicate it. You know, if Joy calls me and she's not a signed client and she wants staging advice, I would say, absolutely, that's the kind of thing we provide once we agree to work together. And so I'm setting up, once we agree to work together is a sentence that will help you get lots of clients. Absolutely. That's the kind of thing I provide once we agree to work together. So I'm creating a line that until we agree to work together, those things are not available to you, but they will be once you agree. By the way, we haven't done a training on this yet, but it's coming. But when you close 13 times on a call, 7 to 13 times, you're more likely to set the appointment. Well, a close is assumptive. So when I say once we agree to work together, I'll provide that for you, that's a close. So if you can have in your head, this person is going to work with me, you will say phrases like, when we work together, or you're going to love our marketing plan, or yeah, you're going to meet the stager, I'll get them set up for you. Those are closing phrases. And when you say those on calls, you're more likely to get the appointment. Okay. Good. All right. Let's keep going. We'll do questions at the end. So let's talk about appointment tracking. And here's the reasons we track, and then I'll show you the actual tracker. So make sure you're paid correctly. Now that does matter more if you're on a team. If you're not on a team, you don't have to worry about who all's getting paid what, because you're by yourself. If you are on a team, it just makes sure you get the credit where credit is due for any appointments. So for example, true story, On my team, I had 7 agents at one point, and one of them got credited with setting the appointment when actually I had set the appointment, which means they got my paycheck for that one. So what was amazing is I simply pulled up my tracker and I found their name, and I was able to show on this date I set the appointment, and it was no big deal. The agent was like, oh yeah, I see it. I'll make sure we get this fixed. Now, had I not been tracking, I don't know if I would have even known it. Now, that might sound wild, but when you are on a large team, and some of you are, you can forget. There could be a close. I just had a closing in December that I set back in 2022, and I just got my paycheck in December. I don't remember that lady. The agent called to say, hey, so-and-so is closing, and it was embarrassing. I had to think, who? And I had to look it up and remembered who it was. Because when you talk to a high volume of people, or if they take a long time to close, you could potentially forget that that was somebody you talked to for 15 minutes 6 months ago, right? So that's part of why you track, is to make sure you're paid. For everyone, whether you're on a team or not, it's your hot list for appointments. So I used to think negatively about people who no-showed me. But then I realized, if you think of that football analogy of getting them into the end zone, they were right there almost in the end zone. Like, I had previously figured out that they were serious enough that I offered them an appointment and they said yes. Now, for some reason, it didn't happen, but that's actually a hot lead. That's a pretty hot lead. So even as a single agent, I want to be tracking all of the appointments I've set, so that if I need to reset somebody or get them back in the queue, I know exactly who I'm looking for. That became a strategy. If it was the end of the month and I was short on appointments, I'd be like, ooh, let me go to my no-show list. And I bet you I can reset somebody. And then I would usually find somebody. By the way, just to make you feel better about yourselves, I had a show no one time. What is a show no, you ask? A show no means they showed up. And they came to get me and they said, Anna, your appointment is here. And by the time I walked out, they had left. A show no. Right? So I hope you feel better about yourselves. Have you ever had a show no? I have. I have no idea what happened, but something happened between 5 minutes and they disappeared. Okay, next. And again, if you're on a team, this applies to you, lead rotation. So if I'm on a team setting for agents, and we have ISAs in this program, so this applies to you, you want to make sure you're fair about how you divvy out the appointments. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. One is round robin, and that simply is I go A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, and I basically just go around in a circle, and all the agents get appointments as they pop up in A, B, C, D order. Another one is performance-based. So it might be that you have an agent who is very top performing. Maybe they sign 90% of the people they sit in front of, and all the other agents sign 70%. So you might say the 90%er gets 2 appointments for everybody else's 1 appointment. You could do that. That's an option. And then the third option would be best fit. And what I mean by that is personality. Or maybe there was a guy on my team who was an investor himself. So he just worked really well with investor clients. So if I got an investor client, I just knew I'm going to jump the line and give this one to Tim. But what was beautiful about tracking is it helped me make sure I was fair across the board. So if I skipped the line to give one to Tim because an investor popped up and he's really good with investors, and I skipped Kelly, well, I'm going to make sure the next one goes to Kelly. So that way Kelly can get it. True story, if you're on a team, and let this be motivating to you, whether you're an agent or an inside sales agent on a team. But when I have performance based on there, we had an agent on our team that I started noticing his appointments were not signing. So I had to self-evaluate. Am I giving him the most difficult clients? Am I giving him all of the expireds and everyone else the sign calls? Like, what's the deal here? And I investigated it, and we figured out he's getting the same quality as everybody else, but he was converting very, very low. He wasn't getting the signature. So we pulled him off appointments. That was painful. I think I mentioned this to you all a couple weeks ago. It was very painful, but that pain was so great. He studied his craft and he ended up becoming the top buyer agent the following year. but he got pulled off list. So let that encourage you. You could be anywhere in your performance today and change it. It depends how intentional you want to be about that. He got very intentional. And honestly, I felt the pain. I was grieved, truly. I know that's a strong word, but I really was for my agents and I hated pulling him off the list. But at the same time, we have a responsibility to our clients. And he has a responsibility to me as the ISA because my income is riding on his ability to close the deal, right? Which sounds funny to say, help the family. And so when he's not doing that at the level of the other agents, it was the right thing to pull him off inside sales appointments. So again, he became top buyer agent the next year and he's been very successful. I think part of it was that pain of getting pulled off the list because he never wanted that to happen again. So he's been great ever since. So that's what I mean when I say performance-based. So if you're on a team and you haven't yet figured out how you divvy out appointments, that would be a good conversation to have with someone on your team. Okay, next, it reveals your top 5 sources. So Gary Keller teaches that we should all have a variety of 5 sources. Now, I've mentioned to you that I used to do about 20 expireds and FSBOs every single month. Well, if that had been my 1 lead source or 2 lead sources, expireds and FSBOs, I would have been out of business in 2020. That's just the truth. Because there weren't, how many of you were in the industry in 2020, 2021? There's a few of you. Way to go. We survived. But there were not expireds to be found. There were not for sale by owners to be found. They were selling like crazy. So had that been my only 2 lead sources, I would have completely been out of business unless I figured out something fast. But thankfully, Gary teaches have a variety of 5 lead sources. And so what that meant was there's 3 more to choose from, and then I need to keep building my sources till I have 5 that are working. And that can help protect your business. The other thing, if you're on a team, is I had my leader one day say, I think we're going to cut, and I cannot remember what it was, but there was some website he wanted to cut from our budget because he didn't think it was doing much for our team. And I was able to show him my appointment tracker, and I was able to show how many appointments I was setting from that website. And he ended up deciding to keep the website. But because he wasn't in lead gen the way I was, he was unaware that that website was actually an income producer for our team. So that's another benefit to tracking. Whether you're on a team or not, you want to be tracking your top 5 sources. 2 more things, and then I'll show you the tracker. It also shows your monthly set, held, signed, and closed. So it can help you just be aware in a quick snapshot, how many appointments have I set in the month of February? How many held, how many signed, how many closed? And then the biggest thing that I love, I would circle this, highlight it, whatever you want to do. It can help you figure out why they did not sign. And you'll see this when I show you the tracker in just a moment. But if they don't sign, what we do is we seek the reason. And on my team, it was accidental. We did not mean to figure out a trend. I just was tracking. But what we figured out was this is where we need to be practicing. So we started to notice a trend on our team of multiple people said, I'm interviewing another agent. I'm interviewing another agent. I'm interviewing another agent. I'm interviewing another agent. I don't know that we would have noticed that if we hadn't started tracking why people did not hire us. So because we were tracking it, we started doing a lot of practice around, are you interviewing another agent? And how to navigate it if they said yes. So it is very helpful to track those things. So let me go ahead and show you the tracker. Give me 1 moment to pull it up here. And then I want to make sure you know how to get the tracker for yourself. So give me just a second here. Okay. So here's the tracker. It's in the portal. Don't go look for it just yet. Oh, you'll be able to do that after class. But here's what the tracker looks like. Make it a little bit bigger for you. So we have the date that it was set. And then over here is the date it was supposed to happen. That's part of how we figured out if it was more than 48 hours, they didn't show up the same way. We also hired someone to study that. But that is one way that we figured that out, was comparing the appointment held date or supposed to happen date to the date that we set it. The other thing that this does is I can quickly figure out, well, how many appointments did I set in this particular month? things like that. Now, if you're not on a team, you could delete column B and column D. This is who set it, and then what agent did I set it for? That's what that is. Are they a buyer or a seller? I tracked that. My goal was that 60% of my business was sellers because I knew that sellers drove the business. If I have enough sellers, I will always have enough buyers. So this was just a way to keep track. Are they seller? Are they buyer? What's that looking like? Then I put down the source. People always ask me what these mean. It was like internal lingo. I'll tell you, but you do your own thing. Expired AK meant Anna Kruger found that expired. FSBO AK, Anna Kruger found that for sale by owner. Sphere of influence, this was Haro Setian's sphere of influence. Boomtown lead, past client referral, agent referral. Again, it doesn't really matter. You do your own thing, but make sure you're tracking your source. That's all that matters, okay? All right, client name. So this actually was a real tracker. I just put Mr. and Mrs. Smith to get out their personal info. But what was helpful for this, especially on a team, I'll just give you an example, is maybe I set an appointment with Buddy Grammer, not realizing his actual name was Richard Grammer. And so what I found with the name tracking and the address tracking was when the closing report would come out. Again, this would mostly apply if you're on a team, but I could look up name and I could look up address. And there were times I found people that I set that the name was different because of a legal name and a nickname kind of situation, but I found them because of the address. Are y'all good so far? Good. Then we have, and here's where I really love it, appointment date. So this told me when it was supposed to happen, and then did they show up and did they sign? If they signed, I put the date in there. And that made it really easy. If I wanted to real quick look up how many people signed in the month of January, I could just sort this sheet by signature date. Really easy. But it also told me found another agent, found another agent, found another agent. So that right there, interviewing another agent. So what it means is green is good to go. They signed. Red is dead in the water. They're not doing anything. And yellow is it's not dead yet, but they didn't sign yet either. Okay. So that might be a follow-up call. I set the appointment, can't reach them ever since. They wanted to think it over. Things like that. I just tracked this because I just wanted to know. And this became like the main thing on our team that we looked at whenever we were practicing was this right here. Okay. Then we have what's the price point, and that you'll see the value of, especially later. We're going to do income goal planning later. Well, our income as agents does partially depend on the price of the house, right? And so what we've got is what's the price point? What's the anticipated closed date? And then this is empty because it's a January tracker, but what's the actual close date and what's the actual final price? You would just fill that in. So that's the tracker. And eventually you might have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of appointments in here. And that's okay. That's actually pretty awesome. When I went to become a MAPS coach, they asked me questions about my statistics and whatnot. And I was really glad I had a tracker because I was able to say, oh yeah, in 2013, I set this many appointments. 2014, I set this many appointments. Nisi says, is it one tracker per ISA? So if 3 people are calling, should there be 3 trackers? Yeah, I liked having my own personal tracker. And what you could do is it's a Google Sheet. So you could say it's one Google Sheet, but there's a tab for each person. You could do that. Whatever works for you. Whatever works for you. Now I have a genuine question that I want to ask you all. So typically when I upload this tracker into the client portal, it's good and I never hear anything about it and everybody can get a copy. It's no problem. I don't have to approve anybody. And I'm noticing something weird today. So I want you to tell me what's happening on your side. So let me show you what I see. What should happen, where'd it go? What should happen is you click here, you click handout appointment tracker. You click on that and it's going to give you a download. Can you all see the download? Now, what should happen, and it happens for me, but I'm wondering if something's different happening for you. What should happen is you just click on it and it forces you to make a copy and you're good to go. and that should be it. But for some reason, I'm getting a lot of people asking me for edit access and all this stuff, and I'm not sure why. Oh, Susie, do you make a new tracker for each year? I personally don't. I just keep it going, but you could. What I probably would do is a different tab for each year. You're getting request for permission to access. Okay, let me just see about fixing something and see if it fixes it. I'm not sure why. This is very unusual, actually, that this is happening. Okay, try it again. Exit out, try it again, and see if it lets you do it without having to ask for permission. I think I just fixed it. It should still prompt you to make a copy. And the idea there is we're not all in the master copy. That would be a nightmare. So it should still prompt you to make a copy, but it shouldn't require you to ask for permission. Helly, Deb, you're both saying that's working. Okay, good. I fixed it and I didn't even have to ask anybody.
It's asking me, it's telling me I need access.
Did you like close it and restart it? Because
No.
I think it's fixed now. Okay. Perfect. I'm laughing because I said I didn't have to ask anybody, but I just asked 27 people on a webinar, but I didn't ask you how to fix it. I just asked you if it was working. Louise, did it work for you now without having to get permission? My email is blowing up from all of you. Okay. I think it's fixed based off the feedback you're giving me. If not, we'll have to figure this out. Okay. I'll work on it. I'm not going to work on it now because that's boring on a webinar for me to do admin stuff, but I will work on it and make sure that you get permission. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Okay. So we have about 6 minutes left. Let me go ahead and put up for you the rest of the slides with recommended action items, and then we'll wrap up with some questions. So the appointment tracker, I do have all the things to track there for your notes. It's basically the heading of every column. So I don't know that you need to write all this down. If you have the tracker, you have all of this. But date set, who set it. Some of these things are just if you're on a team, some of them, no, it doesn't matter, team or not, you're going to want to track all these things. And what to track. In full disclosure, when I started, I didn't know what I didn't know. I did not track closed date and closed or final price, and I wish I had. Because that hurt me when I went to do my income goal setting. So just make sure you're tracking all of that. Okay, so I'd love to hear from you today. What did you learn? Let's start with what you learned, and then in a moment, I'll open it up for questions. So what did you learn today? Let me know I did my job and taught you something.
I have not been fully tracking my
Yeah.
thoroughly the sources, etc., when appointments were set and so forth. I usually retroactively go back and do that sort of tracking, and it's never fully accurate, I would say, because I'm not proactively tracking. So I'm very grateful for your tracker, and it's not overwhelming, so I will actually use it. Thank you.
Good. You're very welcome. And just for perspective, when that tracker started, it was less detailed. And the longer I was in the role, I was like, ooh, I really should be tracking this. So every column that's there is very intentional. And so even if you're not sure why you're tracking it, just track it. If there's a column for it, just track it because you'll likely see why later. There is a reason. Sasha, go ahead and then we'll do questions.
There's a difference of confirming an appointment and just sending a friendly reminder.
Yes. Yes. Very big difference. True story. I had a doctor's appointment this week. I think I mentioned this to you last week when I said I'm going to cancel. Do you remember me saying I'm going to cancel that appointment? Because I don't know why it's happening. And we talked about make sure you tell people what's going to happen in the appointment because if they don't know, they might not come. So I had an appointment yesterday. No, it's tomorrow. Tomorrow at 3:15. I had an appointment. I already wanted to cancel it, but listen to how easy they made it for me and do not do this. I got a text that said, you have an appointment tomorrow. Would you like to cancel it? Yes. I didn't even have to call them. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's a little too easy to cancel that appointment. All right, so recommended action. If you are on a team, decide the appointment protocol, so who gets what and how are you going to pass out leads. Figure out what system tracking you're going to use for appointments specifically, and then make sure you're tracking. Okay? So what questions do you guys have? We'll go ahead and open it up for that. Louise, go ahead.
Thanks. Earlier on today, you mentioned 3 things that are not in our notes, and you gave them to us. Remind them of their motivation, describe observed behavior, and talk to me about what's going on there. What did you title that? The 3 what?
I call it the kind call out.
Okay, thanks.
I made that up a couple years ago. Not that is the pattern. I just call it the kind call out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good. Any other questions? Okay. Nisi, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just had a question with the tracker. Are you keeping it per month?
No, it's just one big long running tracker. Yeah.
Okay. So the reason why I'm asking, so if I have people that are making calls for me and maybe I should just do it per month. So that way they can submit their sheets to me. So that way later on they can't say that, oh, I talked to Miss Jones, in February. Because I'd have February sheet and I'd know whether or not they were the person that talked to Miss Jones and set that appointment.
Yes, but I don't know that it really matters. And can I tell you what my gut reaction was?
Yes.
If you have people that you're having to check like that, they might not be the right people.
So, yeah, so you don't know me, my background, I'm in law enforcement, so I check it.
Ooh, yes. I know you because I know that's awesome. Thank you
so not the people.
Thank you for your service, by the way. That's a tough job. I see most of my dad's side of the family is law enforcement or police, fire, so that's tough. Ultimately, use it however you want. I liked just one big long running tracker, and here's why. From the ISA perspective, I might have someone that closed today. Well, the example I gave you, they closed in December, but they were actually from the end of 2022. If I have to go to a different sheet to look up, that's going to take forever. I liked just one big long sheet of all of my appointments from ever in time. And then all I had to do was hit the find option and type in their name, type in their address, and see if they were in there. So if I have a different sheet for every single month, that's going to really slow that down.
Gotcha. So maybe they keep one sheet and then just clip out that month to send to me or something like that.
Yeah, that could work.
Okay. Thank you.
Use the sheet however you want. If you want to add tabs, if you want to make it monthly, I just like the one running for ease.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Susie said, can the other tracker be added to this sheet? If so, how? I have no idea. I don't think so. Whenever we have Excels in this program, that means I hired someone to make it because it is not my thing. So I don't know that you would need to add them though. They don't really talk to each other. It's different data. But great question. I actually started an Excel class because do you ever have that mood where you're like, I'm tired of paying people to do stuff. I want to know how to do everything. And I got just a few minutes into that class and I was like, forget this. I'm paying someone. I don't care. I don't want to know this. Someone would be happy to make money making a tracker and I would be very happy to pay them. I do not want to know. So I have no idea if you could combine them. If anybody knows, go for it.
Nisi probably knows. If anybody knows, Nisi knows.
She probably does. And she could probably tell if somebody was faking that they knew. Don't take their joy away. Yeah. Same thing. Recently, I signed up for a ClickFunnels class. I time block. Have you ever heard of body doubling where there's 2 of you and you don't feel like doing something, so you do it at the same time together? So a friend of, they call it body doubling. So my friend Becca and I went to a coffee shop and we were like, we're going to learn ClickFunnels. I want to understand marketing. And we blocked 4 hours for a class that we paid for. And I got about, I think I was maybe an hour into the class and I was like, I hate this. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. So she finished the class and I pulled up marketing companies and I started calling them and setting appointments for the rest of the time. And I feel like I got more value out of that. Thank you very much. So make sure you know what is your lane and what is not your lane. There's a point to me telling you this. It's not just telling you a story. When you are in a business where you make money for your production, it's different. We're not salaried people here, right? So you have to know what's your lane and what's not your lane, and what's going to consume your time that you could just pay someone else to do and make way more money for your time for the same activity. All this came off of, can we combine trackers? Okay. All right. As soon as we close, I'm going to figure out what's up with the appointment tracker. And I would say give me like 30 minutes to figure that out and try it again. And if it's still not working, just shoot me an email. Okay. Bye, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. I'll
Thanks,
see you
Anna.
next. You're
Bye,
welcome.
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
You do not need to apologize. You're not a bonehead. I'm reading the chat box in case you're very confused. Okay. All right. I'll
Have a
see you
good
guys.
day.
Have a good one.